see concept based learning. Today our topic is pathological calcifications. So let us learn about it, okay? So why do we call it as pathological calcifications? First of all, what is calcification? Calcification, everything is in the name. Calcification is nothing but deposition of calcium, okay, in the tissues, but not very simple like what I have just told. Definitely it is deposition of calcium, but along with calcium you see other minerals also like phosphate, iron, okay. So these minerals also get deposited in the tissues. Why are we calling it pathological now? Because what we are going to learn in this chapter is where the calcification is occurring where it is not supposed to occur. So it is not physiological, it is pathological. It is some kind of abnormality. So where does normally calcification occur? In the hard tissues of the body, like your enamel, bone, dentine, cementum, right? Where it is not supposed to occur? In the soft tissue. But where it is occurring here? In the soft tissue, right? So let us see what are these pathological calcifications. There are mainly two types of pathological calcifications. One is dystrophic calcification and the other one is metastatic calcification. Okay. Now, before we go into what is dystrophic, what is metastatic and why are they different, how are they different, there are two things that you need to remember which are involved in these pathological calcifications, right? Listen very carefully. First is the tissue, the type of tissue that is involved, and the second is the calcium levels in the blood. The calcium levels in the serum, to be very specific, serum. Okay, these are the main two factors these are the main two factors which are involved in calcifications, pathologic calcifications. So, depending on what is normal and what is altered is how dystrophic and metastatic calcifications are classified. In dystrophic calcification, the tissue is dead. So this occurs in dead and degenerated tissues. Whereas calcium levels are normal. Okay? The opposite is in the metastatic calcifications. The tissue is normal, but the calcium levels in the serum are high. Okay, so this is how dystrophic and metastatic calcifications are different. Now, you can easily remember this and don't get confused ever. D for dystrophic, D for dead and degenerated. So if you just remember this particular thing, everything else will fall into place. Okay, so this is the two calcifications. Now let us see each one in detail. Coming to dystrophic calcifications. So dystrophic calcifications, as I have told, it occurs in the dead and degenerated tissues. Are dead and degenerated tissues same, or is there any difference? There is remarkable difference between dead and degenerated. Dead tissue means completely dead, necrosed. Degenerated, it is necrosed. When you say degenerated, it means that the tissue is it's a reversible thing and the tissue has just lost its functional ability. Lost its functional ability. This may be due to any trauma or any biochemical change that has occurred in the tissue. The reason may be anything, but the degenerated tissue can always be reverted back to normal, but not dead. Okay. So, however, both of these tissues show dystrophic calcifications. How does it occur? What is the pathogenesis of the dystrophic calcifications. Okay, before we go into pathogenesis, let me, most of you must be knowing this, but again, I'll just clear one thing. When we read pathology, we are just starting general pathology. As we go deeper, you will be hearing two words, which is etiology and pathogenesis. Okay, you need to know the difference between these and the meaning of the individual terms. Both of these terms are related to a disease. Okay, whenever we talk about the disease, we mention these terms. But etiology is why the disease has occurred. Okay, the question why is answered by describing the etiology of the disease, whereas how the disease has occurred is answered by describing or learning the pathogenesis of the disease. Okay, so here we are seeing the pathogenesis of dystrophic calcifications. Since these dystrophic calcifications contain denatured proteins in them, these denatured proteins will combine with denatured proteins. They will combine with the phosphate ion. Okay, and this complex in turn combines with calcium ions to form calcium phosphate. And the deposition of calcium phosphate crystals is nothing but calcification or mineralization. So this is how mineralization takes place in dystrophic calcifications. Now let us see some examples where you see dystrophic calcifications. So see on the left side of the board. Here the examples also we will divide into what we see in dead tissues and what we see in degenerated tissues. Okay. So dead means, as I said, necrosis. So different types of necrosis, you will see examples of dystrophic calcifications. So first we are seeing in the dead tissues. Okay. So the first type of necrosis is caseous necrosis. Okay. The most common type of calcification, dystrophic calcification, is seen in caseous necrosis, which is seen in which disease? Very important and hallmark of tuberculosis is caseous necrosis. So in tuberculosis, wherever there are these foci of necrosis, they eventually get calcified. So that is why in X-rays, in long-standing tuberculosis cases, you will see calcifications in the X-rays also in the lung. So that is nothing but the dystrophic calcifications. Okay. Similarly, even in fat necrosis usually occurs in the pancreas or the breast. So even in those cases also, you see deposition of calcium soaps, which is called as saponification. So this is also an example of dystrophic calcification. Next, in liquefactive necrosis, which you see in chronic abscesses. Okay. There also, if the long-standing abscesses remain untreated, they may get calcified. Then, this is about necrosis, the different types of necrosis where you see dystrophic calcifications. The next is, if there is a parasitic infection, because of the immunity of the patient, the parasites sometimes they die within the body only. And the areas where these dead parasites are present may later get calcified. Okay, like for example in cysticercosis, you see so many calcifications in the brain, or hydatid cyst is formed because of the okay. Hydatid cyst is formed because of the dystrophic calcifications. So these are the examples where you see dystrophic calcification in the dead tissue. Now coming to the dystrophic calcification that we see in the degenerated tissues. The first is some scars. Okay, some dense old scars which are present for years together. At some point of time, these scars they undergo hyalinization or hyaline degeneration. So scar in itself is not a degenerated tissue. When it undergoes hyaline degeneration, that later may become calcified. Okay. The next is etheromas. Etheromas are usually, what happens is, suppose you see an artery, okay? These arteries sometimes are filled with some kind of material here which blocks the blood supply. This material can be anything. It can be macrophages or any kind of debris which involves any lipids or calcium, anything. Okay, so because of this material, the arteries become blocked, and that also later may get calcified. So that also comes under dystrophic calcification. Most commonly seen in aorta, okay, which is the largest artery. Then next is cyst. Some long-standing cyst can also show calcifications in the epithelial wall. So some cyst can show calcifications in the epithelial lining. Okay. So these are the few examples where you see dystrophic calcifications in the degenerated tissues. Now, one more important point here that comes under the example only of degenerated tissue is something called as Psammoma bodies. Psammoma bodies. Okay. These are generally seen in benign and malignant tumors. Okay. These are also calcifications only. They are concentric. They are arranged in concentric circles, or they like this. You will see in histopathology. You will see bodies like this. So these are spirules of nothing but calcified material only. Okay. This is most commonly seen in our oral pathology. We will learn about it. These are seen in psammomatoid juvenile ossifying fibroma. Okay. So that type of fibroma is subdivided into psammomatoid because of the presence of these psammoma bodies. So these are also nothing but spirules of calcifications only. So these are some examples of dystrophic calcifications which we see in dead and degenerated tissues. Okay. Now, next we will see about the metastatic calcifications. Metastatic calcifications are seen in otherwise normal tissue. Otherwise normal tissue, but there is hypercalcemia. Okay. Here, why is this hypercalcemia occurring in the body? It occurs, or it can occur, because of two things. Either the bone, which is the highly calcified tissue in our structure, in our body, either the bone is mobilizing more calcium from it, means the calcium which is deposited on the bone is mobilizing into the blood. That can be one scenario or one reason because of hypercalcemia, increased mobilization of calcium from bone. Or the second thing can be that the calcium is getting absorbed more from the gut. So there is increased absorption of calcium from the gut. So that is two reasons. Okay. There are various scenarios where these two things occur, or because of these two things there are different conditions. The more common reason is mobilization of calcium. Okay. So this is the more common reason. Whereas increased absorption of from the gut is less common relatively. So coming to the conditions where we see increased mobilization of calcium from the bone, it can occur in hyperparathyroidism. Hyperparathyroidism. Generally, what is the function of parathyroid? The parathyroid gland helps to increase the serum level of calcium serum level. Okay, so when this particular gland is more active or more hyper, as in hyperparathyroidism, then obviously the activity increases several folds. So the more and more calcium are removed from the bone and sent into the blood. So that leads to hypercalcemia. Secondly, in bony destructive lesions, where the tumors are destroying the bone, like for example multiple myeloma or any cancers of the bone, where bone is excessively destroyed. So if the bone is destroyed, the calcium that is present in the bone, it moves to the blood, therefore increasing the calcium levels in the serum. Okay, so that is one more condition where you see hypercalcemia. The third is prolonged immobilization. When a person has been immobile for a long time, that is probably he is bedridden. Okay, so he is not using his muscles and bone properly. So muscles are getting atrophied and the bone are also slowly getting resorbed, because lack of function will always lead to resorption. Okay, so that is one more reason why we see hypercalcemia. Then coming to the next one, that is increased absorption from the gut. This happens in condition called as hypervitaminosis D. Hypervitaminosis D. Normally, vitamin D helps to maintain the calcium levels in the blood. How does it do so? By increasing the absorption from the gut, increasing the absorption of calcium. So when there is excessive vitamin D in the body, more and more calcium is absorbed from the gut, more than required. So that is why we see hypercalcemia in that condition. The second is milk alkali syndrome. Milk alkali syndrome. Here, when there is increased oral intake of milk, then also you see hypercalcemia. Okay, so that is why it is correctly said that too much is too bad. So too much of milk is also too bad for you, because excessive oral intake of milk can lead to hypercalcemia. Also, if suppose a person is suffering from peptic ulcer, we generally inject something called as calcium carbonate. Okay, so that can also lead to hypercalcemia in patients. So these are the few conditions where you see hypercalcemia, and this hypercalcemia can lead to metastatic calcifications. Now, how does it lead to metastatic calcification? That is, what is the pathogenesis? Let us see here. Now, there is increased binding of inorganic phosphate. Inorganic phosphate increasingly binds to the calcium, excessive calcium that is present in the blood. Generally, there is a lot of inorganic phosphates which are released due to various metabolic activities in our body. Okay, because there is not sufficient calcium to bind with it, or more than required calcium. That is why these inorganic phosphates are used back into those metabolic activities again. But suppose there is excessive calcium in the body, like in hypercalcemia, then this binding of inorganic phosphates also increases, leading to the formation of calcium phosphate. That is nothing but hydroxyapatite crystals. Okay, that is mineralization. So this is the pathogenesis of metastatic calcifications. Okay, actually metastatic calcifications can occur anywhere in the body, but there are some specific organs where you see more of metastatic calcifications than any other place. They are the organs which are more prone to these are kidneys, lungs, cornea, blood vessels, synovium. So these are the organs where you see more commonly you see metastatic calcifications. This is about the pathologic calcifications. Now, one more very important point is, because metastatic calcifications occur due to hypercalcemia, it is always reversible. Okay, but dystrophic calcification occur because the tissue is dead. So, in those cases, it is an irreversible case. Okay, so that is one important point that you need to remember. Now, so having talked about how the calcifications occur and all those things, where do they occur and all, how do they appear under the histology, histopathology? If you see under the microscope, how do these calcifications appear? If you do, now these calcifications, they appear in different colors depending on what stain you are using. So if you use a normal H&E stain, that is hematoxylin and eosin stain, these calcifications take up hematoxylin stain and they are colored deep blue, that is basophilic in blue color. Whereas, but there are a lot of other structures also which are colored blue. So to differentiate between those structures and calcium deposits, we do some special stains. Those special stains are von Kosa stain. In von Kosa stain, we impregnate the tissue with silver, okay, and wherever calcium is present, those areas will appear black in color. Okay. Then there is another stain which is called as alizarin red. Alizarin red. So as the name is suggesting, the calcium deposits will be colored in red color. So these are some special stains which are used for calcium, that is von Kosa and alizarin, and H&E is a routine stain where it appears deeply basophilic. So this is about the pathologic calcifications. Okay. For a quick recap, you can check out some key takeaways that I have put at the end of the lecture. Okay. So if you like my video, please like, share and comment, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you and all the best.